To access Contact Center services, we start in the WeConnect portal. From the Services tab, in the My Services section, we click on CCS Console. We are now viewing the Contact Center Services portal. This video will focus on how to run an inbound voice queue report. We will start by expanding the Reports section on the left and choose Inbound Voice Queues from the list. At the top, we have several parameters to choose from. As always in completed events and reports, the top section will be where you make your selections, and the bottom section will be your output. Here, we are required to select a start date and an end date. Then we need to select an aggregation interval from the drop-down menu. And finally, we are required to select a queue depending on the data you are looking for. The system will pre-populate all of your available queues, and then you can remove each one individually, so you're only running the report for the ones you want. You just click the X to remove the queue from the list. If you want to see a list of all of the available queues, you click the drop down and I can add it back in. There is a sizing limitation on how much information you can pull. The system won't restrict you on parameters, so you can run whatever you'd like, and then it will tell you if it's too large. Then you would just make the necessary adjustments to your parameters. For example, my end date is October 25th. Let's adjust the start date back to December of last year. We will leave the 2-hour aggregation interval and all of the queues. Now, when we click the Run button, we will receive a message that the requested report is too large. We then just click OK, and then we can take a look at what options we can change at the top. Most likely, you will not be pulling all queues at once because you would want to look at an individual queue. However, you might consider changing the aggregation interval, as it's typically easier to look at a day's worth of information. So let's change this to 1 day. And now we will click Run again. So now our data is showing, but please keep in mind, I am using a demo account for this video. You, as a Windstream customer, will have many more customers calling in, so you might need to make further adjustments to your parameters. Then we can scroll down on this page to see all of the data and the summary that is provided at the bottom. These charts are interactive, so you can hover over certain things to view more information. We can export these results as a CSV file by clicking the Export Results button. We can also schedule the report by clicking the Schedule Report button. We would give the report a name. We would add in an optional description. We would choose an aggregation interval from this drop-down list. I can edit the queues or leave them as is, and then we would choose how often we want this report sent to us, monthly, weekly, or daily. Then we are required to enter at least one email address. Unless you subscribe to our SFTP service, you will see a checkbox as an option for it to be delivered in that way. Then once we've filled in all of those fields, we would click the Save button. And now that exact report has been scheduled. If you'd like to print your report to possibly bring it to a meeting, we'll close this box and you can click the Print button. The PDF will pop up on your screen and you can see that it's formatted in a way that is easy to read and removes some of the information that you see when looking at this page in the portal. Let's close out of this and look at some of the information that is being shown on this page. This first section tells us what is occurring in our inbound queues. You can measure items such as talk time, wait time, peak waiting, number answered, number hung up, and number timed out. You have the option to opt out of viewing the criteria that isn't important to you. Let's say, for example, we don't need to include wait time. We click it to remove that data from the graph. The system memorizes this action, so when you come in the next time, it will still be removed. We can restore it easily at any time by clicking on it to add that data back into our graph. These graphs can get very busy, so as I mentioned, you can hover over points in the graph to see the details. For example, if we hover right here, we can see that on April 27th, 4 calls were answered. So that can make it much easier to see the data. You also have the option to get a little more granular. If we want to focus on just this area, I'm going to highlight it by clicking and dragging. Now, when I release the button on my mouse, it will zoom in and we can more clearly see the information. Then, if we wanted to do it yet again, we can click, drag, and release, and it will zoom in even further. If we want to go back, we just double-click the mouse button, and it will take us back to the last level. We would then double-click again, and it takes us back to the original level. Some of this information is going to be displayed further down on the page in separate graphs. First, we can see call disposition. This pie chart will indicate data for calls that were answered, hung up, calls that timed out immediately, or calls that timed out. Timeout means your customers can call in and listen for an amount of time, for example, 10 minutes, and then at that point, we'll time out to a group, to a voicemail, wherever you choose. Timeout immediately is when you decide that if a customer calls in, for example, at 8:30 a.m., but you don't open until 9 a.m., they then aren't required to wait the 10 minutes. They are immediately sent to that coverage point. You can hover over the graph to see more granular information. Underneath, we have average time to abandon. Abandon means the caller hung up, or if you set up a menu option, they can leave the queue via a menu. I can unclick if I don't want to see data for hang up, menu option, or timeout. If I remove hang up from the list, it will save my selections, and I can always restore them by clicking on them again to add them back to the graph. Then over on this side, we have average time. This is showing data for wait for an answer or talk time. And again, if we want to remove something, we would unclick it and just click it again to restore that information. If we scroll down at the bottom of the page, this is the raw data from everything that we've just seen above. Each column header has a drop-down, and if we choose columns, it will show us what data is being shown here. You can check or uncheck depending on the information that you're looking for. So I can easily add in a menu column and it will automatically populate on our list. Then at the very bottom of the page, we have a summary of the data being shown. So the average speed to answer across all of these queues across the time frame that we have indicated is 17 seconds. The percentage of hangups is 56%. The average time to select a menu isn't applicable because we didn't set up that option. The average talk time is 39 seconds, and the average time to hang up is 32 seconds. This concludes the video on how to run an inbound voice queue report.